Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are now entering day 64 of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. And today, I'm going to take everybody just south of Izium, where we are now witnessing what could be the start of a Russian breakout, especially on the what would be the northwestern of this large salient that is starting to appear. And what I want to do is take you guys to the town of Kamishuvaka. And this is the area that the Russians have recently broken through and have seized control of this town after some immense artillery prep work and reconnaissance, and then followed by a direct operational maneuver to seize control of the town. And what I wanted to do is try to show you the difficulty that the Russians are experiencing because of some of this terrain. And this is the town in question. It's not a very large town, more of a village, several streets with really kind of small buildings and residential structures as well. But the Russians were having to come down the P-79 highway, which is this highway right here. And to try to give you an idea of the scope that we're looking at. So here's the town. You can see on my cursor. And from the town to just about this area right here, I hope you can kind of see where my cursor is circling. This area right here is about 2 miles in length. And if you noticed on the north side of the P-79, you have these fairly bushy, forested areas that we are seeing the Ukrainians operate in, and much like the hedge roads, except much more expansive distances between the roads and the what you would define as the hedges. Not the same hedgerows as you would see in Normandy, but kind of the same philosophy in terms of the difficulty that the Russians are having to experience. And to the south of the P-79, again, you see a very heavily forested area. And just to kind of give you an idea of distance, so from the start of the heavy foliage forested area is about 200 meters from the R-79. Was I saying P-79? I meant R-79. To this area where the Ukrainians could have concealment, obviously not cover, but concealment. And again, to the north of the R-79, and here it's called the P-79. So I guess those who are knowledgeable of the area can fill us in. Is it the P-79 or is it the R-79? And then directly to the north of the highway, about 600 meters. So this from the start of the wooded area to the road is about 600 meters, and then on this side, on the south side, it's about 200 meters. And if you look over here, you have an incredible draw distance. Again, forested areas with open farmland, and then you have the main highway. And if you were a javelin operator operating from this forested area, you're looking at about a 1,500 to 2,000 meter keyhole shot in this area. And this is several hundred meters in which a tank would have to be operating down this road in order to eventually get to the town. So again, you're looking at about 2.5 miles of distance, and both to the north and south, you have these heavily forested areas which are anywhere from 600 to 200 meters off the main road. And this is what is causing the Russians so many problems. We're seeing these small Ukrainian units often operating on these 4x4 all-terrain vehicles, carrying in-laws and javelins with themselves. And obviously this area right here would be perfect in-law engagement zones. You're right there at that 2 to 100 meters off the road, And then to the north of this main highway, you're looking at about 600 meters. So just outside or just within the scope of the in-law engagement range, but at the same time, well within the Stunka or the javelin engagement range as well. And the Ukrainians have much of this area pre-plotted with artillery. And this is what is causing the Russians to move so slowly because of this terrain and because of the technology that the Ukrainians are utilizing in the attacking of these Russian columns that are moving within these areas. So I wanted to kind of show you, the viewer, what the Russians were experiencing, and at the same time some of the methodology that the Ukrainians are using as well. And it tends to be fairly difficult to maneuver. You would think that the Russians would have this vast area to maneuver their tanks. And therein lies the problem. The reality, if they're looking to seize control or maneuver into Kamishuvaka, it's really a narrow point of attack in this area. So you have the Bereka River to the north, and this area gets very marshy. And then just to the south, you have additional marshland, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. But as you can see, this kind of terrain right here is what is getting Russian forces stuck. And then in between there, you obviously have further marshy areas and ponds and lakes, such as this and what have you. So as you see the Russian advance towards Kamishuvaka, it's a very narrow operational range in which the Russians are able to maneuver. And it's more or less a bottleneck. And then you see the Ukrainian units operating on these 4x4 vehicles with these anti-tank guided weapons teams, which and again, this is a lot like the hedgerow country of the north of France, Normandy. The D-Day invasion gave the Allied forces so many fits operating in that type of a hedgerow country, and we're heading into May now, and this is going to get greener and more heavy in terms of foliage, which is going to offer the Ukrainians even more cover and concealment or concealment. But the Russians are taking their time. They're shelling these areas to bits where they believe the Ukrainians could be operating, and especially some of these areas where they believe these anti-tank guided weapons teams are operational. And the Russians are slowly advancing and shelling these areas into oblivion, and then moving in, and they're not risking some of these earlier tactics that we saw, where we would see these large columns of Russian forces would fall into this trap, and they would be engaged with in-laws, Stunkas, javelins, and then in combination with the TB2 drones and other drones directing artillery fire on these routes of advance, and that's what was causing the Russians so many casualties. I would think that even going into this, the Russians would have known that, but it was something that I guess they had to experience, and now they're definitely changing some of their operational strategy and tactics in terms of confronting the Ukrainians. But the Ukrainians are reporting that things are getting dicey for them. They are under perpetual and nonstop heavy artillery and multiple launch rocket system attack. We think the Russians are just exploiting areas right now where they can look to eventually circumvent Sloviansk and Kramatorsk in kind of a wide arc. And they may do some other things as well, depending on how much resistance they are meeting in certain areas. And right now, the Russians appear to be really looking for weak points, and then exploiting those operational weak points of the Ukrainian military, where they can continue their drives. Now the problem eventually the Russians have been creating these rather long and extensive salients where the Ukrainians are then able to attack the flanks of these formations, and we saw that near Kiev, especially to the northeast, when we saw that massive salient that extended all the way from Konotop all the way to Brovary, which was just a really kind of I believe a strategic and tactical area on the part of the Russians, and probably have learned an immense lesson from some of that early fighting that took place in the north of the country. But hard to say if the Russians have learned some of their lessons. It would appear that they're moving much slower, and they don't want to be caught in these anti-tank traps that the Ukrainians have perpetually set up. We're also seeing continued heavy street-to-street fighting in Popasnaya. The Russians have effectively cut the city into two, and continue to attempt to clear out this area of Ukrainian forces, and we continue to see in isolated areas such as Popasnaya, such as further to the north near Severodonetsk, extremely heavy fighting, and the Russians continue to shell these areas as well as they continue to slowly push their lines forward. Now, with that being said, we're continuing to hear about Ukrainian operations against the Russians as well, both in terms of cross-border raids into the Russian Federation proper, and then obviously limited counterattacks that are taking place near areas such as Kharkiv and down towards the south, towards Mykolaiv. And both sides seem to be engaging each other in tit-for-tat, limited offensive operations near Kherson. The Russians are kind of launching operations to the south and to the north of Kherson, while we're seeing limited Ukrainian attacks towards the center, towards Kherson proper as well, and we anticipate that to continue. We continue to see operations on both sides near Zaporizhia as well, but not a lot of movement in terms of large areas being seized by one party or the other. But we are starting to see a kind of a common thread in this steady push by the Russians, using what it likes to use a lot, which is heavy artillery, and then in some cases tactical air assets as well, and helicopter gunships. But this is the focal point right now, and where the Ukrainians are probably most concerned is this breakout, this multi-directional breakout just to the south of Izium. And I hope that kind of gives you, the viewer, an idea of just the challenges. I know on the surface, as you scroll out, it looks like a vast open space that's well suited for tank warfare. In many areas are, especially as you continue to push further west. But it kind of in this river valley here near Izium and Severodonetsk, there are immense forest areas that the Ukrainians are using, and these they're not hedgerows, but these forested strips in between these large open fields are being widely used by Ukrainian forces, special operations forces, and territorial defense forces and regular army units to engage and attack Russian forces as they attempt to move into these areas. And we also know that Ukrainian special operations forces are also acting in some cases as almost sleeper cells, where they're laying behind, not engaging many of these Russian advanced columns, and they're waiting for the main bodies and the main echelons to push forward. And then these Ukrainian special operations forces come out of some of these areas, utilizing these heavily forested areas, and then attack Russian rear areas and supply lines. and that is a continued issue for Russian forces as this campaign continues. But we hope this it gives you the idea of kind of what we're seeing on the ground in the battlescape as it continues to transform, evolve, and continues. But that's where we're at for today. We'll have more very, very soon. Thanks for joining us.